Okay. The recording, I think, is going. Yeah. Okay. And there are two primary types of request. There are gets and posts. Gets are the normal type of requests that the browser sends to a web application. And those are ones that, if there are parameters, the parameters appear in the URL block at the top there. Following the URL, you'll see a question mark and then key value pairs. And though that's a GET request because the data goes to the web app through the URL itself, and you can see the data that's coming across. That's certainly something that you don't want to use a GET method when you're passing things like parameters, or even when you're doing a form and where there's lots of data that needs to be sent from the form to the web application. In that case, you use what is called a post request. And so ordinarily in a servlet, there are two key, let me show you here's the class header. The servlet extends HTTP servlet. And see if I can go to, all right, that won't work that way. Let me get us a browser window. Now, can everybody see Google?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to Java HTTP, whoops, HTTP servlet. And if we look at the servlet API for this, let's request. Okay, HTTP servlet is a class, and it is derived from something called a generic servlet. Okay, generic servlet is the superclass of HTTP servlet, and it's sort of the template for all servlets, because we primarily program HTTP servlets, but we could code other types of servlets such as FTP servlets or mail servlets or whatever we wanted to do. But what we mostly deal with are HTTP servlets. Now this says that this is an abstract class, and it implements serializable and provides an abstract class to be subclass to create an HTTP servlet suitable for a web service. A subclass of HTTP service must override at least one method, usually one of these. You got to override the do get or the do post, but you could also put in a do put, a do delete, an it destroy, or a get servlet info. But the two most common ones are get and post. So this one, well, so quite often what you'll do is you put in both the do get and the do post, and one of them immediately calls the other. So it doesn't matter whether you come into this as a get or a post, it's going to end up down here get post, is my point. And both of these methods receive a request, a response, and they can throw either a servlet request exception, servlet exception, or an IO exception. And this is our good old rock, paper, scissors game. And so we get a choice for the computer. And then we say, from that request that came in, get the request URI. Now what that method is going to do is going to tell you what's past the slash mark in the URI. Because if I say, I think I have a servlet, a Spring application running. So if I say localhost, when localhost is a instance of a servlet container such as Tomcat running on your local computer. So instead of putting in a www.whatever URL, you just say localhost. And the default port for Tomcat is 8080. So when I put in localhost -8080, it brings up usually the index.html or the index.jsp or whatever the home page is. And if I say slash, what can I? Well, it's just if I click on admin page, you'll notice that when I clicked on that menu item up here at the top, it puts /admin. Okay, this is when we say get request URI, that's what it's talking about. Get back to here. So when it says get request URI, it's going to get what follows the localhost 8080. So this is how we tell whether we're doing rock, paper, scissors. Now, where does the rock, paper, scissors come from? Well, as I said, index.jsp is one of the possible home pages that comes up. And the buttons are at the bottom. Down here, I have coded the buttons, and I have all 4, but the last one is optional. But here is the div container containing the buttons, and within that I have 3 buttons defined: a left button, and inside of that I put a form, and I said action equals /rock. Interesting. It says method equal post. Okay. Because I thought when we run this, we see /rock /paper and /scissors in the URL itself, but that's not what that says, method post. So anyway, this action in the form is what that request URI is. Interesting. So let's just come come over here and let's run this so we have something to look at while we talk about the code. Oh, yeah, I know. Already got one servlet running, you can't run another. So I got to stop my one that I'm using over here for testing. Stop that one. And come over here and start this one again. Okay. And so it pops up localhost 8080 index/JSP. Now when I click on rock, see, we do see rock in the URI or URL, whatever. Strange. I got to figure that one out. That's strange because it does say method post. But because I wrote the servlet so that both get and post go to the same place, they're all going to end up here anyway. But the request URI is /rock or paper or scissors. And in here, I call the method setLabels, which is further down, passing the constant, named constant rock, paper, or scissors, and whatever the computer choice was. And then it breaks. And when it returns or from these methods, it comes to here, and it's going to set some attributes into the request. And this is what we refer to when we get to Spring as the model. We're putting these attributes into the request object so that they can be picked up by the view, which in this case is index.jsp. And when we get to Spring, we will tell it what page we want to render. But this attribute is a key value pair, and we call this attribute RPS result, and we put the variable result. And all three of the game playing options come to set labels, and it sets a string array RR equals determine winner. And where is determine winner? There is a static import up here for RPS util determine winner, and we pass it the computer choice, and we pass it the user choice, and it returns a string, which then we're going to split on a pair of new lines. Now, does everyone remember that when we do a regex, a regular expression, the /n right here, \n, is a new line, but because the slash right here is a regular expression value, special value in a regular expression, we have to put another one here to escape it. This backslash, in essence, escapes this one so that the \n comes through. So that's how we split what comes back from determine winner with two backslashes, about two new line symbols. And then I pick up result from the first entry in this RR array and the rule from the second one. And we set images.user into user image, and user image is just a string It's the name of the icon that I want to display. Unlike when we were doing Swing and JFX, where we actually picked up the graphic itself, it was in the program. All we're doing here is picking up the name of the graphic that we want. And same with the computer image. So when we come back up here, we set the attributes in the request, we put the result, we put the rule, we put the user image and the right image, and these are, again, only the names of the images. And then we do a request dot get request dispatcher. And what that says is that we want to call another program to render our output. And this is a very simple web application here. Index.jsp is the only JSP that we're working with. And so it's the home page, we make an option, and the program runs and it redisplays the index.jsp page. But it's going to change the contents of that index.jsp page somehow by these 4 values. So it says we do a request, get request dispatcher for this program, and this becomes a program. And then we set dot forward to it, passing it the request and the response areas. Now again, Monday night I said Tomcat or any such servlet container, when you execute a JSP the first time, it will take that JSP, it will generate a servlet from it and then execute it, and it saves that generated class somewhere. And the next time it wants to use that JSP, it checks the modification time on the JSP versus the modification time on the servlet that was created from it. And if it has not changed, it just calls the servlet created from the JSP directly. If it's changed, it goes through the translation and compilation step again. So that's the whole servlet right there, basically. And again, the JSP over here, we looked at the button part of it. And up here is the output area. And here's the left A label. And then below that is the left image. And it says the source of this image is $% left image. Now in a JSP, this is a JSP expression. And again, the JSP is translated and compiled into a servlet, and inside that servlet, it's going to take whatever is in the request area attribute for left image, and it's going to substitute its value for that expression. So if we set left image to, rock.png, then it's going to change that to read source equals quote rock.png, so that when the browser renders the page, it will pick up this rock PNG and put it there. And then here's the title. Here is the output area in the middle. And here's where the result goes and the rule goes. And the right-hand side looks like the left-hand side. There's the right image. So here are the 4 values that we put into attributes within the request area. Now, remember, if we look at this page that's rendered by the browser, and we turn on the developer tools within Chrome or whatever browser you're using, and we look at the source, here is the source, and see the left image, it says source equals rack.png, PNG. That no longer says $brace user image. It doesn't say that anymore, or left image. It doesn't say that anymore because it has substituted the value in here, and then the browser is going to pick that up and display it. And it also has replaced the result and the rule with those values to also. So what is sent to the browser, returned to the browser, is not a JSP. It is an HTML page, because the browser does not understand JSP. A JSP is only understood by the servlet container, Tomcat, or whatever. Does everybody kind of understand that? And if I select paper, then it will change over here, and the left image is paper, and again it's a tie, and the right image is a paper. Hit paper again, and the left image is paper and the right image is scissors. And now the result is you win, and the rule is scissors cut paper. All right. Questions? I'm sure you got some questions. This is a whole new concept, and I would be surprised if you don't have any questions.
Can you go back to the web page?
So, certainly. I'm going to have to research why that form says post and yet it acts like a get. Could be as simple as the word post is in lowercase. I don't know. Now this IntelliJ is helping us considerably here, because we have well, all we've done is say run the JSP, and what it does is it builds all the components, compiles these two programs, and it then creates a WAR file which then it starts up an embedded Tomcat, and it deploys the WAR file to Tomcat, and right here it says the artifact is deployed successfully, and the deploy took 1,640 milliseconds. And right here it says that the WAR file was exploded. And what that means is it opened the WAR file and put the components, the programs within the WAR file and everything else in the WAR file in the proper place. That's what it means by exploded.
That's good to know for us novice programmers, and that we didn't explode our computer.
Yeah, it didn't explode. It just unpacked the WAR file, and that WAR file looks like the jar file that we did in the last chapter. It's a zip file with a manifest in it, and the manifest tells it where the main class is that it's to start. Let me see. Artifacts. Interesting. Where's the... That's the folder, but I don't see the maybe it's down in Target. Classes, and that's interesting. The lesson 7-1.0 snapshot jar. What's that doing in lesson 9? Okay, offhand I don't see the WAR file, but it's around somewhere. But I don't understand why that's in there. That can certainly go away. That jar file does not belong in this one. Let's see, Insight. No. Well, I don't see the WAR file, so I can actually show it to you. But it's very much like a jar file or a zip file. It has a manifest in it which says this is where you start, and it puts all the programs and all the web components in it. And then when it's exploded down here, the servlet container unarchives it and puts everything in the proper place. But it's IntelliJ makes this so much easier. Now, if I didn't have IntelliJ, what I'd have to do is ask IntelliJ to create a WAR file, and I would have to have an instance of Tomcat running somewhere, which it could be elsewhere on my computer, or it could be out there on the internet somewhere, and I would have to transfer the WAR file from where it's created by IntelliJ to wherever that Tomcat is and put it in a particular folder within Tomcat, and Tomcat says, whoa, I got a new WAR file, I have to explode it. And so it explodes it and deploys it. Here, the server is running within Tomcat, and it deploys it for you, etc. That's good. So after almost 2 weeks and 3 sessions, either live or recorded, is this beginning to make some sense? Dead silent.
Yes. Yeah.
Good. Good. And again, I would point out that servlets and JSPs are the most basic primitive way of doing Java web applications. This is the way we did Java web applications back around the turn of the century. So almost 20 years ago, this is the way we had to do things. And servlets and JSPs have been improved a little, because when I first studied Java web applications, we were on version 2 of the servlet API, etc., and we're now on 4. And so they've made some minor improvements to it, etc., but it's still about 90-95% the same as it was almost 20 years ago. And we're learning this because this is the basis for all Java web applications. Monday, we're going to start Spring, and Spring is going to do all of this for you. And so you won't write a servlet. You can use the JSP to create web pages, but we won't. We will use something called Timeleaf, and we'll talk about that next week. But we'll use Timeleaf, which are nothing but HTML files with expressions in them, kind of like those JSP expressions, but they're Timeleaf expressions, and they're Timeleaf tags that you haven't seen before. And there is a Java standard tag library, which are a bunch of tags that I guess Oracle, whoever provides, that do if statements and loops and all kinds of stuff inside of JSPs for you. But we didn't get into that. But we're not going to do any more JSPs and servlets directly. But Spring, we're going to write some programs, etc., and it's going to do all of that for you. And it's going to actually, bring up a embedded Tomcat, and it's going to deploy a WAR file to it, and that WAR file is going to contain servlets and HTML pages, Timeleaf with Timeleaf tags and expressions in it, and it's gonna run just like this one does, but you won't see servlets and JSPs after this week. Okay. Questions? Now, RPS util has not changed since lesson 2. You can use it directly. You have to make no changes in this, except the package name, of course, will change when you move it over here. But other than that, this is exactly the way it looked in lesson 1 and 2. So we can close that. I should show you this. This is the web XML file. This is the way that Tomcat determines what servlet to run. And if the URL pattern says /rock, then it's going to run the RPS servlet. And how does it know what the RPS servlet is? That's defined up here, and it says that the RPS servlet is this class right here. EDU DCD lesson 9 RPSS servlet. So this is how Tomcat determines what servlet to run based upon what you enter into the URL line. Now, when I say localhost :8080, without anything there, Tomcat automatically goes through and looks for certain files as home pages. That's not what I want to do. Over here, let's me come here and say Tomcat home pages. All right. What does it call them? I got them commented out down here. Welcome files. That's what I'm looking for. Interesting. How did I get here? Tomcat welcome files list. The default deployment descriptor, which is the web XML, you can code a welcome file list and you tell it to, in a terrible echo, it looks for, you tell it to look for these files in this order. Okay, I guess that's the default order, whether you code that or not. But you can override that order by putting your own welcome file list in. But when I say localhost 8080, it looks for an index.html page. It doesn't see one. It looks for an index.htm page and it doesn't find one. So then it looks for an index.jsp and says, oh, there's one of those. I'll use that. But you can specify that, you know, that you want to run my servlet first. If you had a servlet called my servlet, in which case it would look up my servlet in the servlet mapping and say, what class is that, and execute that class. See, servlet support was introduced in serverless 2.4 spec, and we're now up to 4.0 spec. All right. What other questions can I ask or answer? See right here, version 4.0 is talking about we're on servlet version 4.0. And here's the style page that I used.
Now, is the style page optional? Can you just put some of the style code inside of your style? Okay. So do we have to have it for this project though?
No.
Okay.
I would say right now we just want to get it done.
Okay.
Whatever's easiest. I mean, it's, yeah. you can embed most of the style right into the HTML here that's in the JSP page, but best practices are that you keep the styling separated. And see, I've used some styling on right and side by side and so forth. Those are what I put over here in the style sheet. If I say an ID of right, it says to display in block. If it's the end ID is middle, it does a display colon in block and alignment center. And then it says, oh, I'm not at the top. That just clears everything basically. And then it says if it's any of those, it's a display block. But then it says if it's a ordered list or unordered list, then list style is none. I don't think we use that. Block loader, don't use that. I don't really use a table. Box. Do I use box? Yep. This top level container here, div, is a box. Ah. I said ID equal box, didn't I? This should be, that's right. No. Yeah, okay. A pound is an ID. It tells it that I want that box to be 600 pixel wide. I want to be the background color to be khaki. Now, did I get khaki?
Yeah.
I guess that's khaki. And the top, it says it's an inline block, left inline block, right inline block, middle inline block, and alignment center. The buttons do inline block. Then it says the divs that are ID rule and result and output, all are font size large and text align center. And it says the divs that are called ID of left label, right label, and title label. We do a clear equal both, which cancels the floating left and right. It's 100% of the container that it sits in, and it's the text align is centered, and the font size is extra large. And then it says the buttons have a padding of 5 pixels. And then if I say a class of button, see if the style has a period, it's a class. Instead of a pound sign, this is a class. The border is outset, which gives it a little depth. Again, it's clear equal both, font size is larger, and the width is 100% of the button that it sits in. Side by side says float left with this margin 5, padding 5, and alignment center. The class box 64 by 64 is where we're going to put the images. The min width is 64, the min height is 64, text align center, and padding 5 px, and alignment center. And the class button says the width is 100%, align item center. There's probably some redundancy in here, but I got it to work. But yes, you can put all the styling right here, but the accepted way of doing HTML is to use divs to create the areas of your screen and areas within areas and so forth, and then use the ID and the class to style them.
Because I didn't use that. I just put it in a table.
Okay. Using a table is acceptable for this exercise.
Okay.
That table, a lot of developers use a table to position things on the page. It's now frowned upon as a practice in general. And in fact, the newest CSS has new CSS grid capability to it, but a lot of programmers still use table to align things and make them line up.
Okay.
And in some ways, that's a whole lot easier than using the CSS inline blocks and float left and right and clear both and all that to make them work right. But it and if you really want to see the power of CSS, there is a website called, if I can find it, I think it's called Zen Garden CSS. What this website does is there is a standard web page, but then people have created different CSS files to go with that web page and make the web page look entirely different. I don't think that's what I'm looking for. View all designs. But again, these are common web pages. They're just styled differently. See, this is the beauty of CSS design, the road to enlightenment, uses different fonts, etc. If I go and select a different one, it puts the beauty of CSS design here, and the road to enlightenment comes down here. So the CSS is creating the background and all the styling, etc., and yet the HTML is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
And there are literally hundreds of examples out here of how people have redesigned the basic HTML page. Anyway, there is a standard HTML which you can download and style the way you want it, but I don't exactly see where it is yet. So anyway, but that's the power of the CSS is the can make the page look however you want, but have the same content. But if you want to put it in the HTML for this problem, I don't care.
Okay.
You know, and I don't care how pretty the picture is, how pretty this screen is. I don't consider my screen here to look that much better than whoops. What did I do? I guess I Exited. Sure did. Yeah, I exited Chrome completely. So I don't care, how nice you make this look or as simple as you make it look. And again, you don't need this reset button. Just worry about the rock, paper, scissors.
Okay.
And you'll notice how the buttons seem to be three-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
That's the styling that I put on that to offset it. And you notice when I highlight over it, it changes somewhat, like I'm pressing it.
Right.
All of that is nifty keen, but it doesn't matter. Just make it work for this problem.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Not right now.
Okay. Well, if there aren't any more questions, then I will see y'all Monday night and we'll talk about spring finally.
Okay.
Okay.
And I really like spring, as you can tell. And although right now I am having fits with spring security.
Yes, you've been very excited about this.
Lesson 13, Lucky 13 is giving me fits, but I'm getting real close to having it work. And basically all it is a few pages where you can log in and where you can log out and where you can register a new ID and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And it's giving me fits right now, but like I say, I'm getting pretty close to resolving the problem, I think. All right. Well, y'all have a good weekend, and if you need me, the Cowboys don't play till Monday. Oh, that's right. The Cowboys play Monday night, and we have a session on Monday night. I'm going to have to record something, aren't I?
Well, again,
I'll probably put the game up on the TV and mute it, and then if you and then I'll have to be careful when I exclaim about the game. Because y'all are going to be on the line, and number two, it'll be on the recording, so I have to be careful what I comment on about the game.
Don't forget to stop the recording too when we're done.
All right. Any other questions?
Well, I was thinking maybe you could just record what you were going to say on Monday this weekend.
Yeah, but then you don't have the capability of asking questions.
Yeah, that's true.
Although that is one thing I've thought about doing is doing some teleconferences with myself and recording them and putting them out there because I want you to start using something called Get and GitHub. And so I want to do a recording on that. And there was something else that I thought about that would be good to introduce you to. And at that I will do. But, I want to, when we start talking about spring, I want you to be able to ask questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Has anybody ordered and received the book?
I thought I ordered the book, but I haven't received it. But I've gotten I've been able to download the PDF.
Right. Well, I've gotten emails which said the book is published and it's being shipped, but I haven't. I get a free copy because I'm a reviewer. Of course, I bought the ebook combo just like y'all did, but I hadn't received my hard copy book, and they told me 2 or 3 weeks ago that it was being shipped out, and I haven't seen it yet. So.
No, I haven't gotten one either.